I'm Aryeh Schwartz alongside Rachel Galligan, and welcome to the Winsidr Show, where it's all about the W. The time has come. Free agency grades have started to trickle down. Mock drafts are getting a little bit more serious. College basketball is preparing for conference tournaments and March Madness. Things are getting heated in the women's basketball world, and we have so much WNBA to discuss. So let's dive right in. If you like our show, please consider joining our Patreon community, patreon.com/Winsidr. That's patreon.com/Winsidr. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can directly show support for the hard work we do covering the W. And don't forget to see our amazing Steph's written content over at winsidr.com. That's winsidr.com. And I do want to give an extra push for that because we are revamping it. We've got content coming out weekly right now. A lot of really cool content. It's free now. It'll be charged once the season begins. Welcome back to the show. Excited to be here. Very happy to chat. It's been a little bit, Rachel. We've been busy. I'm not going to bore everyone with personal crap, but let's dive right in. We're back on the field, court, heads, booth, whatever.
We're back in the booth.
We're back in the booth. We're chatting hoops. Let me real quickly, we just got done doing our Bleacher Report weekly show. I'm just going to really quickly run down, go over what we graded each team in free agency at this point. Obviously, if any moves happen in the next 24 hours that completely change it, we'll put an asterisk. And then any topics that stick out that are in your mind, we'll discuss. I think we know a couple. Atlanta, we both gave them Bs. I think you did B+. Chicago, I gave an F. I'm not holding back. I'm past that point. You gave him a D, a little hometown bias there. Connecticut, I gave him an F also. I feel like they're both trying to outdo each other with bad moves. You gave him a D-. Indiana, we both gave A's. New York, pass. You want to see what happens in the draft.
Yes.
To me, they're pass-fail. Minnesota, New York, Vegas, they all passed. They're pass-fail. You want to see what they do in the draft. Washington, we both gave C's. I was a little bit harsher, obviously, C-. Dallas, you gave an A. I gave a B+. There's a trend here. Golden State, I gave a C. You gave a B. LA, A and A. I give an A- just because the questions of that second pick. Giving up that might be a big deal. Phoenix, we both gave Bs. And Seattle, Rachel, you gave a B- and I gave a B. Which I think might shock some people. I think part of it was there was one night, full disclosure, where I was like helping you prep for last week's episode. Whatever it was, I was drinking and working on my feelings on the Seattle Storm. And I was like looking at it, I'm like, the starting five isn't that bad. Like, they're not championship contender, but they're not that bad. With a good coach, this could be a fun team to play, blah, blah, blah. So I gave him a B, you gave him a B-. That was all the teams in the league. When I read through that, what is something you want to talk about first, Rachel?
I think Seattle, it's hard. Like one moment, I'm like, okay, it's actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like, when you look at the actual roster, like, okay, like this is a competitive team. It kind of dawned on me as we were doing our grades on Bleacher Report. I was like, it feels like last year was kind of a swing and a miss because they tried to assemble a super team, quote unquote, and it wasn't. And it felt like the team chemistry, for obvious reasons, was not very good. Now it's almost like, okay, let's run it back with these same veteran elite pieces, if you will, and see if we can try again and we can make something happen. Do I think that it's up to the standard of Seattle championship? No. Do I think that we've been undergoing a massive overhaul of this franchise for the last however many years, 3 years? Yes. I think they're doing their best to kind of clinching very, very heavily to continue to remain competitive and not end up in the conversation of like a Connecticut or a Chicago Sky, which that's a whole other conversation for another day. Oh, that doesn't have to be for another day. So I guess I just feel a little bit like Seattle, like they've solidified themselves as, yeah, you've got some great pieces, but if things could come together and health is always going to be a factor, but you have some older pieces. If things could come together and like they could make a little bit of a run. I think the biggest thing was last year this team was just really disjointed. There was just different groups and division in areas of that team, and it just really hindered their ability to go out and be competitive at the level that they wanted to. So, I mean, I'm a little bit optimistic. I think at times you kind of wonder how long is this going to, stay at this level. I consider them, middle to upper middle pack right now. Let's see. I'm kind of, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm excited to see, Skylar Diggins Smith, um, Gabby Williams, and NECA come back together and see what they're capable of doing. The Horston news really sucks though, because
Yeah.
she's such a piece that, um, has really been coming along nicely in the league.
My yeah, I mean, just looking at it right now, I feel like they're better than like in my mind. You're obviously better than Golden State, you're better than DC, you're better than Chicago, um and you're better than Connecticut
Yeah,
roster wise. So you're looking at like 4 or 5 teams that you're definitely better than. So you should be in the playoffs, and then you're fighting to be, as good as a Phoenix, a LA, a Dallas, these teams that just were put together and maybe have slightly a little bit more talent, maybe, but have to get together a little bit more than you do. That's where I view them. Seattle's a really, really interesting. The Horston news really sucks just in terms of depth. Um, yeah, just they're a fun roster though. You still have Lexi Brown coming off. You still have Erica Wheeler coming off the bench. So you do have some depth. Obviously, Alicia Clark isn't still as young as she used to be. You have a lot of, you have a nice mix of vet youth. It's a nice pairing. You're going to be better than some teams. A super disappointment if you're not a playoff team.
let's talk about
Super disappointing.
let's talk. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. If they're not a playoff team, then yikes. Let's talk about Connecticut. I think, man,
Whew.
it's. I keep saying it. we knew we knew that things were going to change. That it was an end of an era. We knew that this master roster that had been kind of devised by Kurt Miller and Dwana Bonner, Thomas, all of those pieces, Carrington, like, and then you added an element of Mabry last year that was like a Hail Mary mid-season to try and put this team over the edge and win that year. It was win now or it's never going to happen. Obviously, it didn't happen. And now it's just a complete demolition of exodus of everybody, which we knew was happening. I mean, you just can't keep running it back at the rate that they were, especially when it's a franchise that right now, compared to some of the others, is behind the eight ball.
Want to know so wait, Rachel, this was so funny because while it's widely accepted and acknowledged by us and most people that they are behind the eight ball, that they don't have top tier facilities and whatnot. I saw the article that came out from Connecticut, whatever local paper it was. No, not trying to throw shade to whoever wrote it, whatever. It was a quote from Rosati that was talking about like,
We're not hitting
you
the
know,
panic button.
we're not hitting the panic button, but that wasn't even the line that stuck out to me. The line that stuck out to me was her saying how they were the first franchise to have uh you know, uh, a facility specific for the first franchise in the league to have a facility specific for them, which is only because there isn't another sports team at the like it. Yeah, you have a facility just for you. Is that your way of like trying to like deny that they're getting practices cut off for children's birthday parties or youth basketball or like old age
I mean,
aerobics?
listen, flex your whatever you got at this point because 20 years ago, cool. Like it probably was a little bit more of a destination than what it is now. But times
Yeah.
have changed. It's not the same. The playing field is so different. I mean, nobody wants to be in what is it? Eukinsville? I can't even pronounce it.
Oh no, it's not. Is it? Are they in Arkansas? Or is that
I
where
think
UConn is?
so. I think so. Google
Oh,
it real quick. Google it real quick.
all right, where is?
But it's just. But then she also went on in that article to talk about, hey, there's not an ownership group in this league that does not realize the investment that they have
Uncasville,
to.
you're right.
Yeah,
Number one, Mohegan Sun Boulevard, Uncasville.
that there is not a franchise and ownership group in this league does not realize that the investment that they have to put down now. or else you're done. You're done. I
Yeah.
mean, we have to
And
at
I,
some point start getting into the conversation. Do teams start folding? You know, I
well,
don't
Rachel
know.
also, I mean, you got people trying to bring a franchise to Boston when there's a team in Connecticut. Like, ridiculous. That's not happening. To me, that's more of like a move to try and get some ownership stake, move the team, play. So, whatever. We'll get into that at a different time. Let's run down just kind of like their key players. You got Marina, Natasha Cloud, Tina Charles, Diamond DeShields, Olivia Nelson-Ododa, and that's, in my opinion, just not trying to be rude, nothing like that. That's kind of the cores that you have. Then they've obviously brought in a lot of players for training camps from overseas, a lot of players who haven't had a chance to really prove themselves, young players. That's what you do when you're in a complete rebuild. But like if we break this down and we're honest about it, look, Natasha Cloud, I'm not even like trying to hate. You are not a superstar. You are not the best point guard in the league, and you are not a superstar who is going to move the needle for this team to become a contender. Tina Charles is in the last, arguably, year or two of her career. That says enough. Diamond DeShields had a great promise early in her career. Really sucks some of the injuries she's had. She is not the player with that potential that we saw early in her Chicago career. So it truly comes down to these three players playing around Marina Mabrey who are no longer in their prime, are not players who are truly going to move the needle to make this team better. And Marina, rightfully so, says, I want to go somewhere. I spent half a season, not even, I spent half a season on a competitive team. That's the first time she's done that in her career. And she got a taste of victory. They fell short. She wants more of it. And Connecticut slammed that door and said no. And I respect both sides in this. That's the thing. I respect Marina saying, I want to get out of here. I know we disagree on this. I respect Marina saying, I want to get out of here. I didn't sign up for this. But I also respect Connecticut, as I always have, teams when DC locked down EDD last year.
You think
They're doing what they have to do.
you think Kelsey Mitchell signed up to be so putrid with the Indiana Fever for a whole decade? Like, not everybody's in a perfect scenario right now, and there's a lot of players that would give anything to have a roster spot in this league right now. And so that's kind of my pushback on this when this has been the third time. And I am a huge Mabry fan, and I totally understand. I would want to get the hell out of that situation too. Totally. Just for the record. But I can't fault Connecticut for doing what they're doing. What I want to know is, like, how long does this even work? Like was it Aryeh that tweeted like me the rest of the season if I was denied a trade, and just the gif of the guy just like bricking shots in the gym.
Rachel,
And it's like,
Camila Cardozo, Camila
yeah,
is overseas in China. Yeah, in China, she's scoring 2 points a game. I don't know. I got to get an update on how this is going because I think this is the most baller move ever. Scoring 2 points a game because she wants to leave, and they're trying to charge her
yeah.
a fine to leave that she doesn't want to pay.
It feels like a standoff, and I think you can very much make an argument for both sides of being in the standoff that they're in.
But it's also hard for the tribe and ownership and the fan base because, and this is what I was trying to explain to somebody, similar to what everyone's like, oh, are they going to trade everyone in DC? First of all, you have to understand there's only so many. And I think, and here's my thing. If I'm reading the tea leaves, Connecticut took calls. Connecticut talked with other teams, got a sense of what they could get from Marina. And unlike Chicago, most teams in this league are not willing, because probably Marina would refuse to go back to Chicago realistically with that roster. But not many teams are stupid enough to give up future draft picks, because with the CBA expiring, everybody's going to be a free agent. You are going to need to fill your roster with vet minimums, draft players, and good draft players. So I think it's like 120 out of the 156 players in the league are going to be, or 130 are going to be unrestricted free agents. That's insane. So yeah, like,
hold on,
I don't think
I'm looking at Connecticut Sun and Mabry's. She's got this year. She's just like everybody else, unrestricted free agent.
So
making 210. It's gonna suck, but
who wants to give that up? Future draft picks. No one's trying to give the players to make that work. It's too late in the game for that. So I think Connecticut is just trying to save face and say, hey, we want to win still. we're going to at least put together a roster that
Yeah.
has some intriguing elements. You have Tina Charles, you have Natasha Cloud, you have Marina. It has some intriguing elements, these overseas players.
I do want to make a comment about Connecticut just to maybe be a little bit of positive Polly right now.
Somebody
When
should.
I look at this roster, obviously everyone thinks that, an atomic bomb has gone off, and I understand that angle too. What I do like about this is I see opportunity. There's like 700 training camp contracts signed with a bunch of players that a lot of people have never heard of, and some players who maybe got drafted and haven't been had another opportunity. I mean, there is so much opportunity with the Connecticut Sun for those players who are trying to prove themselves, who've maybe had a great year or two overseas, and they've turned some heads. There's opportunities for some new faces, some fresh blood in the WNBA, some new types of names that we're going to be talking about. And that's going to be the case for the next few years, especially with franchises, being added to the equation here. But I'm really excited just to kind of, for those players who have struggled to get noticed, who've struggled to have opportunity, who've struggled to stick to a roster. That'll be probably the biggest storyline that we see with Connecticut, because it's going to be a long rebuild here. It's going to take time. This is going to take at least 2 or 3 years to even look relatively like something that is tolerable or competitive to watch, middle of the pack conversation. So I'm
Well,
excited
they
from
got to
that
make so many
standpoint.
moves. They
I'm
got
excited, yeah, I'm excited to see just some of these new faces, international talent, whatever it may be, that can have an opportunity here. This is what basketball is all about: is seizing that chance and trying to elevate your play and make a WNBA roster spot.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Yeah, and like, look, you look at Indiana over recent years, how they've tried to rebuild. It takes time, and they got back-to-back first picks, and they got other
Mhm.
good picks. Chicago Sky, we have to talk about it. We don't need to go in so deep. I'll just give the background of they traded the number 3 pick, sorry, in this year's draft, which most people say they expect Paige, Olivia Miles, and the French player, I don't want to butcher the name, uh, to
Malanga.
be Malanga, to be, you know, arguably franchise cornerstone players for the future. Obviously, her franchise cornerstoneness is a little bit further down the road than these other players we're talking
Mhm.
about. But it's like that's the thing that's discussed between GMs and in the know minds, conversations, group chats, whatever. So they give up that, which could very much bite them in the butt down the road. They also, the part that, like, when I'm reading this draft, I'm like, okay, like Atkins for 1 year, it's not so horrible. You can core him. And then you're like, yeah, but the CBA, we don't know what coring is. I'm like, oh, yeah. Okay, well, Atkins for 1 year, they can pay her. She's going to be better than whoever this draft pick is. What happens if Paige and Miles don't come in? And then you're like, they swapped the 27 first round pick, or like the Washington has swapped. And I was like, yeah, I can't defend this anymore. That's a horrible trade. That I'm done. I tried to defend you. I'm sorry. It's over. Look, love adding Atkins to this roster. You are adding her on essentially a borrow, a loan, 200K this season, and she's out, unrestricted free agent, new CBA. You could possibly core her, but you don't know how much the coring is. So to plan to do that doesn't make sense. And you gave too much. You gave too much down the road.
Just to be an 8 seed.
You probably could have given up this year's pick, and gotten Atkins and the second round pick, because there's like a second round pick in 2027 also, which maybe will be more impactful. I don't know, but probably not, because it dilutes the first round, honestly,
None
from the
none
team.
of this is shade towards Ariel Atkins. I think she's a great player. Love watching her career, all those things. Yeah, I hate it. I think I've been very vocal about it. I've said multiple times so far this spring that I think the Chicago Sky would be making a massive mistake to trade the third pick. And everyone kept saying, oh, I think they're going to trade it. I think they're going to trade it. And just goes to show me, that my hometown team that I've had the privilege to watch and study and analyze and all these things over all these years it's the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's the Chicago Sky being the Chicago Sky. Talk about Michael Alter, whatever it ends up being. That's the common denominator here. Um, I understand people want to be competitive. I understand that you're trying to win right now, and you're trying 11 months from now to go attract free agent talent. Is there more than a shovel mark in the ground for the practice facility? I've heard that they've actually have started some construction. I don't know
That's
if
the word
that's
now.
true or not. But obviously, okay, that's a great step. But people don't want to be in Chicago.
Hmm.
And I don't know what it's going to take in 11 months to make that a more desirable location. On top of now, you're adding two more expansion franchises. I think that they've made some solid moves in the past. Moving to Wintrust was huge. Remember when they were playing in Rosemont? Oh my God. So now they're playing with, where DePaul plays. Now they've got the practice facility. Congratulations, we're not practicing in a community center anymore. It's not done yet, but it's supposed to be done. We'll see, to be determined. There's been some conflicting reports on that. I'm just frustrated because winning a championship was the biggest blessing and a curse for this franchise, because James Wade was so good at finding a way that specific year with the limitations that this franchise has, whether it's support staff to resources. This is one of the most invested franchises in the WNBA, and everybody knows it. And James Wade was able to go in there, be the GM, be the head coach, find a way to attract Candace Parker back to Chicago. They made that fairy tale run that year. Let's remember they were 500 going into the playoffs. Yes, there was injuries, but yes, it was a veteran team. Courtney Vandersloot, Allie Quigley, you had Dolson. It was a great year. And we all knew that team could be really good, and they just happened to peak and play their best basketball at the right moment. And it was lightning in a bottle. And from that moment on, it was like, we can do this every year. No, you can't. No, you can't. And if Malanga was playing in the United States and the common fan, media person knew who she was, Chicago would be on fire right now.
Hmm.
That's my
Yep.
opinion of it. I know I'm an international kind of guru, as you would say, or whatever. And I know I'm probably, biased when it comes to international play, but that's why I tweeted what I tweeted about some of the recent film about her. I just wish that Chicago, because I think that they made some solid additions. I think that there's a mutual benefit of bringing Courtney Vandersloot back for a year. She has an agenda. The Chicago Sky have an agenda. It can work probably for just a year. We'll see. I don't know if I see it happening much longer after that. I guess we'll see. To be determined. I think you've got a new coach, still very unproven in what that looks like. I'm high on Rebecca Allen. I think Ariel Atkins is a great piece. It's interesting. Are you going to core her for $1 million a year from now? We'll see. We'll see what the new CBA brings about. There's just a lot of question marks when it comes to that. I think this team is solid pieces. I don't see there'll be a ton of chemistry issues. So that's always a positive, right? But I see this team as an 8, potentially 7, worst case scenario, potential lottery team. I
Well,
guess to be
that's
determined.
the thing to me is when they, as you pointed out and as you stressed, when they won that championship, they got this idea that they can do below the bare minimum, or I guess literally below the bare minimum, honestly, and still succeed. They
Correct.
have this false sense of security
Correct.
that they can do that again, which is not realistic. There's a reason why the teams that do everything right don't win it all every year. And it's not because, it's only luck, but you had a lot of luck that year. And since then, they have not shown any true investment. They've done,
Just
band-aids on a broken leg. I'm
I just
sorry.
cannot stress enough how special and amazing and incredible and wonderful. And I was sitting there when it actually happened, when the Chicago Sky won the championship, knowing everything I know about this franchise was absolutely incredible what they were able to do. Candace Parker, James Wade, everybody, Vandersloot, Quigley, everybody deserves, because it probably just shouldn't happen, when you just look. And so I guess I'm trying not to be so critical on Chicago. I feel like I'm always critical on Chicago because I just feel like that's how I feel. I think that they are investing in a practice facility. That's great. Again, you either do it or you don't. You either do it or
Yeah.
you fold. You're either a part of this thing or you're not. We'll see what that looks like. To be determined. I just wish I can almost give a little more credit to a Connecticut or a Washington at this point who will just fully embrace a rebuild. We saw LA refusing to absolutely embrace a rebuild. Um, but I also think LA is not the same type of conversation as Chicago. I mean, there is still always going to be an added element of a destination when it comes to LA. But they are similar, right? In terms of they've kind of been able to get by from time to time, but now like that time's running out, and you got to put your money where your mouth is, and the players are going to call you out for it, and it's going to be glaringly obvious. And so I guess like when it comes to Chicago, if I'm trying to be positive, I think they added some solid pieces this year. I'm excited that it looks like ownership is adding some investment. I'm excited to see what Tyler Marsh can do. I hope that this franchise can have some consistency in the next coming years, but I continue to say it. What you could have gotten at number 3, and it doesn't even have to be Malonga. I think that
Well,
there's
that's what I'm saying. Even if it wasn't her,
yeah,
they have young stars and they
yeah,
have added a vet. You need to give it
Deshaun.
time. You need time. Like you can't put it in a microwave. You
Well,
have
it's
to
just
put it
it's all going to get blown up a year from now. They're all gone anyway. It's all going to be different, and
exactly. Why are you doing it?
you don't have a rookie who's been drafted this year that's on a rookie scale contract from previous CBA that at least provides some type of consistency, right? Because after this year, there's nothing. There's nothing. They're all gone except for Cardoso and Angel Reese. Everyone else is gone.
Mm-hmm. And
So
what? And
at least I think that's the value of this draft class is getting them on this old CBA. Now, we don't know what the new CBA will be, but probably cheaper and at least some longevity and some consistency to build around. And that I think might be the best way to explain my overall feeling through this entire thing. And I feel like that's what the Chicago Sky need.
I mean, overall, like I've been a proponent of I could very well see them because of the impact rookies have had over the past few years and expecting in the future that they say past rookie scales, we're going to adjust them. I think that's going to be an aspect of the CBA
Very,
that
very
they're
much
going to
so.
adjust that. So like, but either way, rookie scale contract is going to be less.
Well, and
And
also everyone's like, well, rookies don't make rosters. Well, I'll tell you what, we've got like three new franchises coming in. People are going to have to fill these rosters out. People are
Mhm.
going to have roster spots. There has never been more of an opportunity to make rosters, especially in a franchise that's not a destination, and it's going to be a massive exodus a year from now.
Yeah.
Either you win a championship with Atkins. What was the other thing I said to you yesterday? You either win a championship with Atkins, and there was 2 things I said. That was like, these 2 things have to happen, or else this trade is one of the worst in the history of. Let me
I
pull it
mean,
up.
what Paige and Miles don't go into the draft? Because look, at the end of the okay.
If they don't win a championship with Ariel Atkins or acquire a major free agent next year because of her acquisition, this is a failure.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. That's the only thing they can gain from it.
Yeah.
Is somehow keep whatever. Yeah. No, that's what it boils down to. You're very right.
So I just
No,
feel
like
better finally being
Chicago.
able to get my my
No,
thoughts
because
up
the
there.
thing is, like, you can't speed it up. Chicago needs the time to let their
Yeah.
2 draft picks from last year grow. This isn't LA was a different situation. LA had already had pieces around them, so they can add a vet for a year. And it's not the biggest deal in the world because then you bring them there and you are a destination. People want to go there, even if you don't have a facility. There's so many.
What else
We
we
go
got?
on and on about this.
What else we got going on? I feel like let's give a little more time because we haven't talked. What else? Some of the expansion reports. Can you fill me in, because obviously we have Golden State, clearly. We have Toronto, we have Portland. But now there's been like a host of 1,000 other reports.
Yeah.
Like what was the most recent one? Cleveland,
Cleveland was
which I
guaranteed.
hate, by the way. Which I hate it. I hate
Cleveland was guaranteed. I have a friend moving to Cleveland, so I wouldn't be against it because I have a free couch to crash on
it.
if I go to a game there. No, there's been like the Cleveland report, then the league pushed back really quickly, putting out their PR statements to everyone saying, hey, this was not decided. This is not accurate. And then if you read the Cleveland report, also, it didn't make any sense. I always tell people, look at the specific words that reporters are using to kind of give you a clue into what actually is happening. The report said, it's a done deal. We're 90% done. That's not a done deal.
Yeah, you don't get to say both of those things. It's like it got really popular, and then it just kind of like went away, and like the league's statement didn't really get much traction, but it was like if you're paying attention, you saw it. So then it's like it poses the question. I thought the goal was okay, we're adding 4. Then it's like, are we doing 6? Are we because now it's like I even heard reports out here in Denver because I've kind of pretty much put that to bed as someone who was involved in there when Engelbert came and did her, kind of um, tour and visit with the Denver ownership group. Now there was a report on the nightly news, like the local Channel 5 Denver news last week that was like WNBA expansion in the works. And I was like, wait a minute, I didn't see any
It's
of that.
I think the league is hitting the iron while it's hot, trying to garner as much. The Cleveland report claimed it was like 250 million was the entry amount, which would be a record. I
Record
think more
breaking.
people are realizing if I think more people are offering money to Kathy, and Kathy's going, I'd be stupid not to take the meetings. And then you have people exit the meeting and trying to position themselves in good ways. Look,
Well, and then you
from
also have the Tennessee one too, which that
yeah.
huge. Love that one.
So my thing is this. A lot of reports coming out. Let's not jump the gun. Let's wait for more stuff to happen.
Yeah.
Let's understand what the field is. People want to make split second reactions. And I get we're in the commentator field, so we're part of that. But give it some time to breathe so we can understand more because things are going to happen. Also, the W needs to be smart about not expanding too quick,
And
like
watering
any
down the product.
and I've said this for a long time. There's a reason why everyone's always like, there's 30 players. I wish W needs expansion so these players have roster spots, blah, blah, blah. Those players wouldn't be playing. The reason they're not on a roster, they don't get a roster spot, is not because they're so good and there's not enough roster spots. It's because they're not better than the people who got the roster spot. It's very rare that a team is turning down a better player for a cheaper player. It's very rare. And if that does happen, it's a unique situation of other teams' elements and happening at weird times, but you make it work if you want the player for what your
Well, and
team vision
I've been
is.
a huge proponent of roster expansion.
I want roster expansion so you have more players. They're not going to play though. That's for player
Hmm.
development, something we have not seen in the
I would have,
W.
and it doesn't necessarily have to be um, 15 roster spots. I mean, colleges aren't even doing that anymore, especially when it comes down to NIL and revenue sharing. Well, that's even going to change. But like when we're constantly every year getting down to, oh, we've only got 6 active players, we got to sign this medical hardship whatever, and like 2 weeks into the season, like it doesn't have to be okay, we've got 14 roster spots now, although that's pretty cut and dry, but it could be you know 2 additional spots that are like, they're considered like developmental. They travel, they're there, they have resources, they're supported. And then if they're needed to be called up, they can, just to provide a little more consistency. And then the overall product looks better. You're not flying in somebody to Dallas from Portland the night before and then throwing them out on the court and saying, yeah, go be competitive and try and sell our product. I think roster expansion can look a lot of different ways.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on it. I think they need to do it. I think they've needed to do it for a while now.
Yeah.
Just a matter of time. Yeah, so like there's all that news. Um I hope that so many things the W does, it feels like it's reactionary. Um Small example, the Twitter account was tweeting about trades and signings 4 days after they happened. After the 4 days after the teams announced them, 8 days after the reporters announced them. And everyone was calling them out. They adjusted. Now they're doing it like a day after or that evening. But my point is more so it seems like so often the W is reactionary. And I really hope, and honestly, throughout the whole process of adding teams, it seems like they've been reactionary, pulling out of this one, pulling out of that one, going back to this one, now opening up more doors to this one. Have a freaking plan. That's your ideal vision.
Or
Have adjustments and drive
expand your WNBA office, expand your positions there in the office, the actual operations of the league. Like
through.
make sure you have the right people in place, from a social standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, from an event standpoint, from an operational standpoint. All the make sure those people, league office, have the support that they need to be on top of it, because us who've been following it for a long time probably know that that is very much warranted and very much needed. You're going to add all these teams and the work just gets doubled at that point, because you're adding all. So I mean, I just think that there's ways to continue to invest and grow this league and provide support. And we're asking these teams and these franchises and these owners to step up. we need the league to step up and invest in themselves and the people around the specific league office. It's more than just let's add a team, add more teams, add more teams. I think you have to be really careful at the rate in which you're adding. So that part is something that I haven't had an opportunity to like really talk to a ton of people about. And I think everyone's kind of just like waiting to see what is, we know we have three, but what does it mean after that? It's really interesting. Like when it gets into like 2028, like it feels like a big question mark right now, but I guess time will tell us for sure.
Love it. Perfect way to end the episode. Thank you, Rachel. We'll be back. Want to remind everyone, check out patreon.com/Winsidr. Seriously, it makes the wheels churn. It makes the lights stay on at Winsidr and allows us to continue to do what we do. Peace.